At 38 years old, Michael Phelps finally breaks the silence he has guarded through years of triumph, scandal, and crushing mental battles. The most decorated Olympian of all time, a man sculpted by discipline, pressure, and fame, now reveals something no one expected: the 5 people he hated the most during the most turbulent years of his career. It is a confession as shocking as it is unsettling, because behind the golden smile, the world record times, and the iconic image of perfection, there were people who pushed him to the edge, scarred him, betrayed him, and shaped the darker side of his journey. But why now? Why would Phelps, a man trained to bury emotion and swim through pain, suddenly expose the shadows he has avoided for years? Insiders whisper that these names have followed him like ghosts through victories, relapses, and every silent night in rehab. And now the truth begins. Here comes his list. 5 names, 5 stories deeper than anyone ever imagined. Number 5, Ryan Lochte. If there was one person whose presence turned Michael Phelps's golden victories into silent storms, it was Ryan Lochte, the teammate who was supposed to be his brother in the pool, yet too often became the mirror of everything that chipped away at Phelps's identity. To the world, they were friendly rivals, 2 American superstars, 2 titans pushing each other to greatness. But behind closed doors, insiders say their relationship was steeped in envy, tension, and an unspoken bitterness that grew with every headline comparing them. It began innocently. Lochte was charismatic, carefree, the media's favorite wild card, a contrast to Phelps's intense, quiet focus. Reporters loved to stir the pot, calling Lochte the new Phelps, the real talent, the one who could dethrone the king. Phelps laughed on camera. He didn't laugh backstage. Insiders remember moments in training camps when Lochte would brag about beating Phelps in practice sets, mocking his exhaustion. He wanted attention, one former teammate revealed, and Phelps hated that Lochte tried to steal it in the shadows. Then came the 2012 Olympics. Lochte arrived with swagger, promising to dominate the games. Media narratives exploded, the rivalry was everywhere. But when the races began, Phelps struggled while Lochte shined. The 400 IM was the breaking point. Phelps failed even to reach the podium, while Lochte took gold. Cameras caught Phelps's stone-cold expression. That moment hurt deeper than he admitted, a coach whispered. Lochte didn't just win, he humiliated him. But the true fracture came 4 years later with the infamous Rio incident, Lochte's fabricated robbery scandal. What enraged Phelps wasn't the lie itself. It was the timing, the recklessness, the way Lochte dragged the entire U.S. team, including Phelps, into global embarrassment. He felt betrayed, a team official said. Lochte's actions jeopardized everything Phelps had fought for. For Phelps, Lochte became the symbol of a rivalry that never needed to exist, a teammate who constantly forced him into battles he never wanted. Number 4, Bob Bowman. For most of the world, Bob Bowman was the mastermind behind Michael Phelps's greatness, the legendary coach who chiseled an Olympic titan out of a fragile, hyperactive boy. But for Phelps, Bowman was far more complicated. A builder and a breaker, a mentor and a tormentor, a man he admired and deeply resented. Behind their success lay a storm of pressure, fear, and emotional wounds that would follow Phelps long after he left the pool. Their relationship began with discipline so intense it bordered on brutal. Bowman pushed Phelps to swim farther, faster, harder, punishing missed strokes, doubling yardage for any complaint, drilling perfection until Phelps's body shook. It wasn't training, one former teammate said. It was survival. Insiders recall nights when Bowman would call Phelps lazy, weak, or nowhere near as good as he thinks he is. These weren't motivational tactics. They were psychological blows. Phelps internalized every word. He feared disappointing Bowman more than he feared losing, a close friend revealed. The dynamic shifted at the height of Phelps's fame. Bowman grew demanding, controlling, insisting on total obedience. Phelps, drowning in pressure and collapsing internally, began to crumble under the weight of expectations. Bob didn't see the signs, one team therapist whispered. He pushed him harder instead. Then came the true breaking point, the DUI arrest. Phelps felt exposed, humiliated, spiraling. Yet instead of compassion, insiders claim Bowman gave him only cold disappointment. He didn't ask if Phelps was okay, an insider recalled. He asked how Phelps could embarrass him. For Phelps, that moment changed everything. The man he once saw as a father figure became a symbol of all the years of suffocation, the pressure that drove him to isolation, addiction, and the darkest mental battles of his life. Their bond was real, their success undeniable, but the scars deeper than medals could ever hide. Number 3. Chad le Clos. If Ryan Lochte tested Michael Phelps's pride and Bob Bowman tested his sanity, then Chad le Clos tested something far more personal: his ego, his legacy, and the fragile line between respect and humiliation. Their rivalry may have begun in the pool, but what made le Clos unforgettable to Phelps was not his talent. It was his arrogance. Their story starts in 2012. Le Clos was young, hungry, fearless, the rising South African star who shocked the world by beating Phelps in the 200 meters butterfly at the London Olympics. Cameras captured Phelps staring at the scoreboard, stunned, frozen. Insiders recall that moment vividly. He felt something snap inside him, not just defeat, humiliation. But the wound didn't deepen in the pool. It deepened in the years that followed. Le Clos embraced the role of Phelps's irritant. Interviews, press conferences, promotional events. He mocked Phelps's training, questioned his motivation, and claimed Phelps was past his prime. In one notorious press clip, le Clos copied Phelps's iconic death stare, puffing his chest like a cartoon villain. He wanted to get under Michael's skin, a teammate said, and he succeeded. The real breaking point came before the 2016 Olympics. Phelps was in the middle of rebuilding his life, fighting depression, repairing relationships, training harder than ever. But le Clos wouldn't stop. He boasted that he would retire Phelps permanently. It made Michael furious, an insider whispered. But what hurt wasn't the trash talk. It was the timing. Michael was fighting demons Chad knew nothing about. Then came Rio. The stare, the silence, the revenge. Phelps didn't just win. He dominated the butterfly, reclaiming his crown while le Clos faded behind him. It wasn't triumph. It was closure. Yet even after victory, Phelps admitted privately that he never forgave le Clos, not for beating him, but for disrespecting him during the most vulnerable period of his life. Number 2, Michael Cavic. If Chad le Clos wounded Michael Phelps with arrogance, then Milorad Michael Cavic wounded him with something sharper, a rivalry built on fractions of a second, a photo finish that haunted both men, and accusations that turned a historic Olympic victory into one of the most bitter controversies of Phelps's career. Their rivalry ignited in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the race that would become legend. The 100-meter butterfly final, Phelps chasing his 7th gold, Cavic chasing immortality. To the naked eye, Cavic touched first. Even Phelps thought he had lost. But the scoreboard told a different story. Phelps by 0.01 seconds, the smallest margin in Olympic swimming history. The world erupted, but Cavic's reaction cut deeper than any celebration. Insiders remember the moment Cavic smirked on camera, implying the result was strange, too close, and worth reviewing. He wrote blog posts, gave interviews, even released statements that subtly questioned whether Phelps had truly touched first. He felt robbed, a former Serbian official admitted, and he wanted the world to question Phelps's win. Phelps stayed silent publicly, but privately, that silence burned. Then came the rematch in 2009. Cavic arrived wearing a shirt that read, "Phelps, is he tough enough?" It wasn't trash talk, it was provocation. A public challenge designed to embarrass Phelps, to pierce his composure, to force him into emotional battle. But Phelps wasn't amused. According to teammates, he was furious, snapping at anyone who mentioned Cavic, training with obsession, muttering, "He's going to pay for that shirt." And when race day came, Phelps didn't just win. He destroyed Cavic. A victory not of fractions, but domination. A message delivered with every stroke. Yet the resentment didn't fade. What hurt Phelps most wasn't the rivalry. It was the disrespect. The implication that his greatest moment, the moment that defined the Beijing Games, was undeserved. Years later, Phelps would admit that Cavic's doubts lingered in his mind longer than any loss. Because Cavic wasn't just a rival, he was the man who tried to rewrite Phelps's legacy. Number 1, Tyler Clary. Among all the rivalries, controversies, and personal wounds in Michael Phelps's long career, no single name provoked a deeper, more personal resentment than Tyler Clary, the teammate who did the unthinkable, publicly accusing Phelps of being lazy, entitled, and unworthy of his status. Not a rival from another country, not an Olympic challenger, a teammate, a man inside Phelps's own locker room. Their tension began quietly. Clary was talented, ambitious, constantly fighting for recognition in a world dominated by Phelps's shadow. But the real fracture came in 2012, weeks before the London Olympics, when Clary gave an explosive interview criticizing Phelps's work ethic. He accused Phelps of coasting, not working as hard as the rest of us, and benefiting from special treatment. The comments hit Phelps like a punch to the ribs. Insiders say he read them alone, in silence, before crumpling the article in his hand. He felt betrayed, a teammate said, not because of criticism, but because it came from someone who swam next to him every day. The scandal spread instantly. Headlines questioned Phelps's dedication. Reporters asked if the greatest Olympian of all time had become complacent. Phelps, already battling burnout and depression, felt cornered, exposed and humiliated by accusations coming from within Team USA itself. But the moment that solidified Clary as the name Phelps hated most came in the locker room days later. Clary tried to justify his comments, saying he was just being honest. Phelps didn't respond. He walked past him without a word, the coldest silence teammates had ever seen. Then came London, and Phelps answered not with interviews but with medals. He reclaimed gold. He silenced doubt. He buried Clary's accusations beneath performance, but insiders swear he never forgot that Clary's betrayal carved a wound deeper than any rival ever could. For Phelps, Tyler Clary wasn't the hardest opponent he faced. He was the one who stabbed him in the back during the darkest moment of his career. When Michael Phelps finished naming the 5 figures who shaped the darkest corners of his career, the air around him shifted. Not with anger, but with a heaviness that felt almost ceremonial. Because what he revealed was not simply a list of rivalries or betrayals. It was a map of his internal scars, each name marking a chapter he had spent years trying to outrun. Insiders close to Phelps say he never intended this list to be a declaration of hatred. It was something else, a reckoning with the ghosts he carried from one pool to another, across continents, across seasons, across the rise and fall of his own identity. Each name forced him to confront a version of himself he tried to bury. The insecure prodigy, the exhausted champion, the broken man behind the medals. As he leaned back after speaking the final name, something softened in his expression. The tension slipped from his voice. What remained was honesty, raw, unfiltered, almost fragile. They shaped me, he said quietly. All of them, the wins, the losses, the things they said, they pushed me to become who I am, even when it hurt. And in that moment, the narrative transformed. This was not a confession of hatred, but an acknowledgement of the painful truth behind greatness, that the brightest champions are forged not only by victory, but by wounds the world never sees. Because for Michael Phelps, the fiercest battles were never fought in the water. They were fought in silence, in the places fame could not reach and medals could not heal.